Okay. So you should be able to see our homepage. Is that right? Okay, so let's take a look at the homepage. Couple of things. I'm recording this on Zoom, I hope. And there are also videos out there for what we're going to be going over in the next hour as well. We're done with Word, obviously. And the last thing we're going to do is a couple of assignments on PowerPoint. PowerPoint's pretty straightforward. Here's a link to my homepage. These are the video links from that page. And a lot of the stuff on this first assignment is almost exactly the same as it is in Word. Obviously, some of the stuff with slides is not in Word. As far as doing lists, adding pictures and picture effects, adding a footer, checking the spelling, those things are pretty much the same in PowerPoint. PowerPoint's pretty straightforward, it's pretty easy to use. So here's the assignment. This is a template. And hang on a second. Okay. So if I open that up, I think I have to switch screens, switch back and forth between screens here. So I'm not going to open that up, but that's just a short slideshow. And these are the instructions. And there's a picture that you have to insert. And here's a link to the picture. And here's a link to what it should look like when you get done. So this is what you'll do on your own outside of class. I don't think you'll have a lot of trouble with that. If you do, send me an email, or I am in my office today. You can stop by my office as well. Okay, so we're going to look at the Vlookup function today. And it's another way to make decisions other than using the if statement, so or the if function. So I'm going to take a look at the samples file here. I'm going to download that and open it. And I think when I do that, I need to switch my screen sharing here. Hang on a second. Okay. And my chat window keeps disappearing on me. Okay, so I got the chat window back up. So let me know if there's a problem in the chat window and I will try and fix it. So if we download the samples file, we're over here quite a ways to the right now. And we are on the purple tabs down here today. So let's, we're going to skip the conditional formatting. Let's go to grades, 9.1 grades. And I'm going to zoom in on this. So this is, we've got a first name, a last name, we've got an average, and we've got a letter grade. And I don't think we went over this version of the if statement. I'm gonna double click on it so it's a little bit easier to see. It's ifs as in plural, and it basically lets you do a bunch of if statements at once. So the way this works is it checks to see if C2 is greater than or equal to 93. And if it is, the student gets an A, and that's the end. If it's not greater than or equal to 93, then it checks this next condition. And if that's true, the student gets a B, and that's the end. And if that doesn't work, then it tries this one, and the student gets a C if that's true, and then they drop out. If none of those are true, then we check to see if it's greater than or equal to 70. And if that's true, then we put a D. And if none of those are true, the value true obviously is always going to be true. And so we will put an F. If we get this far, an F will go in there. So we can do it with one if statement. It's a little bit long, but it's doable. It's not that hard to do. Now let's go over to column E. And over in column E, I'm going to double click on that again. That's a big if statement. So we're doing pluses and minuses. So we got to check a lot more different numbers to get the pluses and minuses in there. And again, it's relatively straightforward. You know, you start at one end of the number line and you check to see if it's greater than or equal to 95, and then it's an A. Otherwise, you check for 93, and if that's true, it's an A minus, and you just keep working your way on down through all these options. But it is kind of long. And it turns out that there's another way to do that in Excel that is a whole lot easier. And in order to make it work, you need to have what's called a lookup table over here. And what I want to do is I want to look up the person's grade in this list. So this number is the minimum. If you've got an 80 but not an 83, this is going to be what your letter grade is. Okay. So obviously, if the number is 77, grade is C minus. If it's 80, it's a C. If it's somewhere in between, let's say it is an 82. Okay, well, an 82 is not quite 83. So we go down the list here until we find a number that's equal to. If we do, we just go across and return that letter grade. If we don't find a number that's equal to it, we find the first number that's greater than, and then we just back up a row. Okay, so if it's, say we're doing the 82, it's bigger than 80, so we go to the next one, and it's possible this next number might be an 82, but it's not. So then we back up, and 82 is going to be a C. So there's one requirement if we want to do it this way, and that requirement is that these numbers in the first column, the number that we're looking up, have to be in ascending order. If they're not ascending order, the whole thing falls apart. So, normally this scale would probably be flipped around. You put the A's at the top and the F's at the bottom, but in order for the lookup to work, it's got to be in ascending order. Okay, so let's take a look at the lookup function, and we'll go over here to F2. And this is a function. All of the functions are on the formulas tab. And there happens to be a category called lookup and reference. And there's a bunch of them. And the one we want is called Vlookup. And the V stands for vertical. And what that means is that our table is going up and down over here on the right. There's also a horizontal if your table is going in a horizontal direction, but I think about 99% of the time when you do something like this, it's going to be a vertical lookup. So it wants to know, what am I looking up in the table? Well, what I'm looking up is the grade. Okay, the score rather. So I want to look up the score. And so I'm going to click on C2. And the 95 will appear over here. And then it wants to know where my table array is, okay? And it's over here. And I want to look up numbers in this column and get the grades out of the next column. The labels here are not actually part of the table, so we don't include that. So we need to select everything from the 0% up here to the last A down here at the bottom. Okay? And it will show you the table over here after you select it. Now, I'm going to copy this formula down the page. And when I copy it down, I don't want this to move down a row and then move down another row and keep on moving down the page. I want this to stay right here. So that has to be an absolute cell reference. And the easy way to do an absolute cell reference is by hitting function key F4, and that'll put all the dollar signs in for us. So now it should say $M, $4, colon, $N, $14. So don't change the M, don't change the 4, don't change the N, don't change the 14. Then the last thing is, it wants to know, okay, once we find the number in this column, what column of the table do we have to go to retrieve what it is that we're looking for? Well, the grade is in column 2 of the table. So this is column 1, and this is column 2. And frequently it's going to be column 2, but it's possible to have a lookup table where you've got more than one column to the right. So with number 2 in there, we do not need this last argument. So we're going to leave that blank, at least for the first few examples. And all we have to do is click on OK. And it will tell us that George got an A. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to go to the lower right-hand corner here, and we want to fill that all the way down. And we want to, the easy way to do that is just double click on the skinny black plus sign. And everybody's getting an A. And what they're supposed to be getting is the grades that are over here. Okay. So something's wrong. And it turns out that what's wrong is not my function. This is correct. But what is wrong is my table. And I left the example this way because this is the way that I actually did it originally. And so I was typing in scores over here, and it said, okay, 0%, 70%, 77, and so on. And all of those numbers are percentages, and percentages are just fractions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this, and I'm going to, and if you're trying to do this along with me, you should select it as well. And I'm going to go to my home tab up here, and I'm going to change the format of that to a comma. So the numbers that are really there, 70% is just 0.7, and 77% is 0.77. So I look up 95 in there. Well, that's bigger than 0.7. It's bigger than 0.77, and it's bigger than, if it's bigger than the last number here, then we just get whatever's in the last box. So it's giving us an A for everybody. And it looked like it was going to work, but these are whole numbers over here, and these are fractions over here. So the way to make that work is I've got to change all of these numbers here to the corresponding whole numbers. So I'll put a 70 in there. That should change everybody's grade, I think. Or not yet. Okay, 77, 80, 83, 85, 87, 90, 93, 95, 100. Okay, so now it works, but the reason it didn't work, I think, was kind of subtle. These numbers over here look like the numbers over here, but these numbers did not have percent signs. They were whole numbers. These numbers over here did have percent signs. So now that I've got these numbers correct, I am getting the right answers over here. And I should get everything in column E and everything in column F should match. And if you want to double check your work here, there's an easy way to kind of check and see if that works. We can just do equals and check to see if E2 is equal to F2, and it should be true all the way down. And so if I just get my fill handle and double click and go all the way down, any value that's not true should kind of jump out at me. So they're all matching. So it looks like we did the lookup correctly. Okay. Now I'm going to go to the discount sheet here and zoom in on this. This is the same type of deal. We have a quantity that we're going to look up here. And depending on the quantity that's purchased, the buyer gets a discount, and this is going to be the discount rate over here. So it's a 2-column table. This is the number I want to look up. So the user can put any number in there they want to. And when they put the number in, Excel will come back and tell them what the discount rate is. So This is where I want the discount rate to go. This is where my lookup function has to go. And let's go back to formulas. Let's go to lookup and reference. Let's go down to the bottom and do Vlookup. And the value I want to look up is whatever the user types in that yellow box in F2. My table array does not include the headings, it's just numbers. So I select that. And I'm not copying this formula, so I don't really need to put the dollar signs in, but it might be a good habit to get into, because if you do copy the formula, that lookup table is always going to be an absolute reference. And then let's go down in our column number where we go to look up the discount rate. It's going to be column 2. And again, we don't need this last argument yet. Let's go ahead and click on OK. And so it tells me that 99 or 999 is going to be 6%. It's not quite 1,000. If I change this to 1,000 though, that should be enough to get to the 9% threshold. And it does. So any number I type in here, it'll automatically go over here, look in column B, find the number. And if the number is not exactly there, it'll find the first number bigger than it, back up one, and then give me the percent. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward as well. Let's go to the next one. It's called taxes. And let's zoom in on it. Okay. So we have a salary list over here. We got a tax table. And we're going to look up a salary in column E here, the first column of the table. And we're going to look up a tax rate percentage over here in column F. Okay, so let's go to column C here. And I want to do a lookup. So let's go to our lookup and reference, scroll all the way to the bottom and choose Vlookup. The thing I want to look up is the person's salary. So that's going to be V2. And my table array is going to be everything from here down to here. And I didn't put the cursor in that column. So let's back up here. My lookup value is V2. My table array, click down the table array box before you start this. And it is E2 to F22. And I am going to copy this, so we'll put the dollar signs in. I'm going to hit function key F4. And the column number again is column number 2. And again, I don't need that last argument yet. So let's click on OK. And I get 8%. So if I look up 43,999, it's bigger than 40,000, but it's not bigger than 45,000. So we back up and we retrieve the 8%. Okay. Now let's just copy that all the way down. And it's looking up the correct tax rates for me. Now, the reason for looking up the tax rate is because I want to multiply that by the salary and calculate what their actual taxes are going to be. And I've got 2 choices for doing that. I could create another column over here and just call it tax. And I could say, well, the tax, put in a formula that says the tax is going to be equal to whatever is over here multiplied by the tax rate, which is over here, and hit enter. And the pound signs just tell me that that number is too big for the column the way it is right now. So just widen the column. And we are going to get a fill handle. And well, that's nice. It looked at the numbers over here on the left, on the right, instead of the ones on the left. And it filled it all the way down to the bottom of my table, which I really don't need. So this is the tax amount for the person over here. The other thing that I could have done, though, was I just could have edited this formula right here. So I'm going to double click on it, and that is the rate. So it's going to return, 8% or 19% or 2% or whatever. And I want to take that number and I want to multiply it by the salary, which is B2. Okay. So I could just do that in place instead of making up another column and hit enter. And now I've got a little bit of a problem. This was formatted as percent. And now, because I multiplied it by a dollar value, it's actually a dollar value. And so I need to reformat that as a dollar value. This formula over here now is all messed up because it was multiplying these 2 numbers together, and I'm going to get some humongous number for the tax. I'm not going to worry about that yet. This is the correct formula. This is the number that was over here before I replaced it. And let's get our fill handle and copy that all the way down. Okay, again, I've got the pound signs. All that means is I didn't make the column wide enough. So just widen it a little bit. And these numbers over here are now meaningless. It's just a product of these two numbers. And now that this is the tax, not the tax rate, it makes no sense. So I'm going to delete this. This is now labeled incorrectly. I should just call this tax instead and hit enter. Okay. And all that does is, it shows you can do more than just look something up. You can actually use it in a formula. And so I looked it up first, and then once I found out that was working, then I added on the code to multiply it by what's in B2. So you can take that result and do anything you want to with it. You can put it in, add other things into the formula as well. Okay, now let's go to page views over here. And this is some data from a web page, or website rather. And the pages are given numbers. So each page has a unique number. And our web server keeps track of how many views each page has. And then it calculates what that is as a percentage of the whole. And what we want to do is, those numbers are useful for a computer, but they're not very useful for a person. We would have much more luck if we knew what the name of the page was. Okay, that's probably the home page because it's the one that gets most of the hits. But it'd be nice to know what all the other ones are too, and we really have no idea from those numbers. Okay, so I've got a lookup table. It's on down here at the bottom. It's on the Pages tab, and what I've got is I've got a page ID in column A. I want to look up the page ID, and then I want to look up the page name over here in the second column of my lookup table. Okay. Now, because these are on two different pages, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this table over here and I'm going to select it all. I'm not including column headings. I'm just selecting the data, and I'm going to give that a name. Okay. And I'm just going to call that page table. And we haven't done this before, but it comes in handy sometimes. So you can name any range that you want to by simply selecting it and then going up here and giving it a name. The restriction is you can't have any spaces in your name, so you have to run the words together. So if I put a space between page and table, I get an error, so I have to run them together. And I'm going to hit enter. And now I'm going to click off of that, and I'm going to show you something. I'm going to go up here into the name that's called the name box. I'm going to type in page table again and hit enter. And it automatically goes to that selection. Okay. So now I've got something called page table that I can refer to in my formulas. And now let's go back to page views here, and let's zoom in on this a little bit. Okay. And what I want to do is I want to look up the page name. So this is what I'm going to look up. I'm going to go to that table on that page, and I am going to retrieve what's in column 2 of the table, and it'll tell me what the page name is. So in D4, I need to go to my formulas tab, go to lookup and reference. By the way, Vlookup is the only thing we're looking at today. So let's go to Vlookup here, and it says, what do you want to look up? And I want to look up the page ID. And where's the table array? Now I could go flip over to the pages tab and drag the mouse over it and then do F4 to get an absolute cell reference. But here's another neat thing about giving something a name. If I have a page table and I typed it in with a capital P and a capital T, but that doesn't matter. It will come back and it will show me the page table over here. And it's a named cell reference. It's a named range. And because it's a named range, it's automatically an absolute cell reference. So you don't have to remember the $sign. So that's kind of a neat thing about it. And then I want to go to column 2, and then I'm going to click on OK. And so it tells me that's not the home page, it's local business 1. And then if I go and get my fill handle and double click and fill it in all the way down, I've got a problem. I know that every one of these page ID numbers is in the table. So if I get this, not available or this error message here, if I click on this, and then the little green tab tells me there's an error. And if I pause over here and click on the little exclamation mark, it'll tell me that is a value not available. So it didn't find the number in the table, even though I know that it's there. Okay, so something's wrong. And what is wrong is, let's go over and take a look at the pages. And I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit. And in the other examples that we did, these numbers in column A were always in ascending order. And if you look at these numbers over here, they are not in ascending order. So we will go until we find the first number that's bigger than the page number we're looking for, and then we'll back up one, and that is what we will return. Okay. Now I've got two choices. I could put this in ascending order, but there is another alternative, and that's the one that we're going to use. Let's go back over here to page views. And the difference between this example and, say, for example, the taxes example over here is that it is possible for people to have salaries that are not an exact match here, and they fall somewhere in between. So this has to be in ascending order because I can't list every possible salary that there is over here in my table. Okay, so that's why it has to be in ascending order, because we won't have an exact match for almost all of these numbers that are here in the salary column. Now let's go to the page views again. And we know we're going to have an exact match because every single number is going to be in that table over there. So if that's the case, then we need to do what's called an exact lookup and an exact match. And let's go back here and click on local business. Now I can double click on that and I can edit it. Or I think the easiest way to do it is not to do that. I'm going to hit escape now and go back to not editing that cell. And I think the easiest way to do this is select the cell that has the function in it, and then go click on FX up here. And we didn't use this last argument on the first three examples because we did not require an exact match. But this one, if you read the description down here, it says is a logical value to find the closest match. Okay, and if it's sorted, and you don't have to do an exact match, you put true in there, or you can leave it out, which is what we did. If you want to find an exact match, and the data is not sorted, we put false in there. So just type in false, hit enter, and now that makes a whole lot more sense. That should be the first page on our list. And now if I call, and the other thing is, you notice I got local business one, local business one, local business one. So a lot of, that was hitting a lot of them. And that should only occur once as well. Now, if I go and get my formula or my fill handle here and I double click on it, now as I scroll down, I see that everything is found in the table. And even though it would take a little while to do this, you can look through the table here and you can find out that there are no two occurrences of the same page name. So as long as we got unique page IDs over here, we will have unique page names over here. So if you want to do an exact lookup, you have to remember to use that third argument and set it equal to false. Okay, let's go to 9.6 part price. And let's zoom in on this one as well. So I've got some part numbers over here. They do happen to be in ascending order, but they've also got some text in them. So if it's a text value that we're looking up in a table, then you have to do an exact lookup as well. So what I've got over here is I've got a number that I want to look up. So the user of this would type in a part number here, and Excel would go look up the price, the name, and the status for us. So here's a table that has more than 2 columns. So let's go to G2 here, and let's try to look up what's in G1. So it's going to be our Vlookup again. And the value I want to look up is going to be whatever they type in to G1. Okay. My table array is, you know what, before we do this, let me cancel that. And let me name this table over here. And we'll just call this parts. And hit enter. Okay. So now we can go back and we can start on our lookup. So let's go to lookup and reference and scroll down to Vlookup. And the value I want to look up is whatever the user types in G1. My table array is called parts. And you know you got it right because it will show up over here on the right side. The column index for the price, that is actually the third column of the table, not the second column. So put a 3 in there, and I am doing an exact lookup, so I want to put false in here again, and then I can click on OK. So I picked one from the top here, so that is $380.73. Now I basically want to do the same lookup for the part name and the status, except the part name is going to be in column 2, and the status is going to be in column 4 of the table. Now, so it's going to be almost exactly the same. I'm looking up G1 in the parts table, but I need to change the column number. I need to leave false the way it is. So let's try copying this formula down. We're going to have a problem though when we do. If I copy the formula down, I get an error. And if we double click at what got copied, the G1 got changed to a G2 because I was copying it down the page. Okay, so let's go back up here and let's just double click on that and click on G1. And I'm going to hit F4 and I'll put the $ signs in. So G1 won't move when I copy it. And so now I'm going to copy that formula down and let's see what we get this time. Now we get the price every time. And the reason is because when we copied that, we're still going to column 3. But the part name is in column 2. So all I have to do is change that to a 2 and hit enter. And down here, if I double click, all I have to do is change that to a 4 and hit enter. And it tells me that it's in stock. So let's make this a little bit wider. And there we go. So that demonstrates having something other than column 2 as the thing that you're looking up every time. Okay. Let's go to text keys over here. And let's do this. So this is another one that has text keys in column A. And we're going to have our user's going to type in a name up here in the bright yellow box. And we're going to look up the phone number for them. So this needs to be an exact lookup as well. Let's go to our lookup and reference and scroll down to Vlookup. And what I want to look up is, I'm in the wrong cell. I got to be down here is where I want my formula. So let's go to Vlookup. And what I want to look up is whatever they type in, which is going to be up there in E2. My table array, didn't name this ahead of time. So I'll select it. My table array is here. And I'm not going to copy that, but I think it's just a good idea to get in the habit of making that absolute. Or better yet, name the table before you start. And the column index is column 2. Now, I'm doing an exact lookup here. But this is in ascending order. It's in alphabetical order. I'm going to leave this out, and we'll see what happens. So click on OK. There is no name up there yet. So I'm going to type in John and hit enter. And John's number is 4567. And there it is. It's finding John for me. As long as I type in a name that's in column A, this will work. But what if I type in, let's say my name? Okay, there is no Tom in the table. And I hit enter. But it tells me that Tom's number is 5551111. And that's because it went through here and T is greater than R. So it went all the way to the last item on the table. So if I had somebody in the middle here, let me see, let's do Jack. Okay, Jack is not on the table, but it goes until it finds something that is further in the alphabet than Jack, and that would be John. And then it backs up one, just like it would with numbers, and it gives me this number. So it looks like it might be working. I don't get any NAs here, but it's not. So what we need to do is we just need to go in here and click on this. And again, rather than double clicking, I think we should just click on the FX up here and get our function arguments. And all we have to do to fix it is we have to go here and we have to put in false for the last argument. And now it tells me that there is no person named Jack in the phone table. Okay. And that is the last example. And now what I want to do is I want to switch over to the browser again, and I have to go do another sharing thing over here. And okay, now you should be able to see the home page. And so we have a lookup, and actually, oh, I need to do another screen share. I'm going to download the data file here and open that up. And I need to go back and stop that share. And I need to do another one. And there it is. Okay, so this is the file that we'll be using. And so these first few here are just simple, straightforward formulas. When we get to these last three columns here, though, the taxes are going to be determined. It's kind of like that tax table that we had an example. We're going to look up a federal tax rate. It's going to be over here. And I want to show you something, though. If I take the mouse and I drag it over all this stuff here, I thought I gave that table a name. I did not give that table a name. So let's this is what I recommend that you do. Give it a name, okay? And we just call it taxes. And hit enter. And then go back over here. And now whenever you want to refer to the tax table, you can just call it taxes. You don't have to go over to this sheet here and reference it. And if you call it taxes or give it a name, then you don't have to worry about putting the dollar signs in either. It's going to be an absolute cell reference no matter what you do. Okay, so the gross pay will have to be multiplied by the number you look up in the federal tax rate table. The Iowa taxes, the gross pay will have to be multiplied by the number you look up in the tax table again. That'll be column 3. Social Security is not in a table. It's just this number right here. Don't use that number, though. Use an absolute cell reference. This would be $F$4. Okay, so you don't need a table lookup for that because there's just one element. Okay, so that is the assignment for tomorrow. And the plan is to meet face-to-face tomorrow, like we have been. And then we'll alternate next week. We'll meet face-to-face on Tuesday and Thursday, which are test days. And we will meet online on Monday and Wednesday next week. I'm going to put this up on YouTube in about 5 or 10 minutes. There are also videos there that are going to be pretty darn similar to what we just did. And those videos are already there, and those are on our homepage. So that's it for today. And so tomorrow you have to have this assignment turned in the Dropbox by 8 o'clock and the PowerPoint assignment in the Dropbox by 8 o'clock. And I'll see you tomorrow. If you have questions, I'll be in my office most of the day today. I'll be doing an online class at 12:30, but I should be around most of the rest of the time except for lunch. So you can email me, you can stop by, whatever works. So tomorrow I will see you face to face.